Okay, Mataji, we're ready.
Okay. Okay. Hare Krishna, everyone. Today we will be covering chapter 14, the disappearance of Lord Krishna. Very, very wonderful chapter. So in our first slide, I'm going to talk about the events that led to the disappearance of Lord Krishna. Now, this is not described in this chapter, but it's actually a lot of this, what I'm going to say is happens in the 11th canto, actually. But it's important to speak about that so that we can get a sense of what's happening here, because this chapter is about the aftermath of Krishna's disappearance. So to really get an understanding of this chapter, it's nice to go back to the part in the 11th canto where which relates to the pastimes of the disappearance of Lord Krishna, how Krishna disappeared, what are the events that led to his disappearance. Of course, I'm not going to read those parts, but I'm just going to explain and describe as to what happened. But before I do that, it's important to understand about Krishna's disappearance, how it's so, just 1 second, how it's so great that just by understanding this, one does not have to take birth in the material world. But it's not easy to understand. Krishna's disappearance is actually harder to understand than his appearance. Right? The reason is because, first of all, even his appearance is very difficult to understand, because the pastimes of Krishna they look so human-like, right? Like those in the material world, so that one can easily misunderstand them. And we know that when Krishna appeared on this planet, then all his pastimes were misunderstood by some people, right? Because they appeared so ordinary. Krishna stealing butter, Krishna playing with his cowherd friends. But yet we can see that even though they were ordinary, but yet in each of his pastimes, there were elements that one cannot imagine, that ordinary living entities cannot do. And I'm sure you can think of many like that, right? How Krishna married 16,108 wives, and he had palace for each one of them, and how he expanded himself to be with each one of them, how Krishna lifted Govardhan Hill, how his rasa danced with the gopis at night, in such a way that he situated himself between each gopi, right? Whereas by which each gopi was thinking that Krishna was dancing with her only. And then, of course, Krishna killing one demon after another. But we see how on the other side, he acted like an ordinary person, where he was tending the cows, walking without shoes, playing with his cowherd friends, engaging in very sweet pastimes. So out of all the pastimes, the disappearance pastimes is very difficult to understand, because one wonders, how can Krishna just die, But actually, he never dies. We all know that, right? But just like Prabhupada explained, how in a drama, sometimes the hero acts and he dies. But in reality, he's not dying. He just goes behind the stage and he continues with his work, right? So in this same way, Krishna continues with his pastimes in another world. So it's like the sun, disappearing from our vision, but appearing again in another, another place. It's not, we know that the sun is existing somewhere else. So, so this chapter, like I said, it does not discuss the disappearance pastimes of the Lord, but it describes the aftermath of that. Now, in Canto 11, in the final 2 chapters, and also in some of the opening chapters of Canto 11, there are events leading to Krishna's disappearance. They are discussed. And these are pastimes that are difficult for pure devotees. They don't like to discuss because it's painful for them. But of course, it carries a sweetness to it, Because whatever Krishna does, he does it in such a wonderful way, in such a heroic way, in such a unique way. Right? Because pure devotees know, the sweetness is there because the pure devotees know that Krishna hasn't died. He's appeared somewhere else to give some others pleasure. Right? But another point to remember about Krishna's disappearance is that he comes, and appearance, is that he comes to this world. When he comes to this world, he's not controlled by material nature as we are. He's not forced to take birth. He's not forced to make choices. And when he leaves, his transcendental body moves away, but he leaves behind his universal body, which is everywhere. Krishna is all pervading within every part of the universe. So Krishna basically comes. So why does he come? He really basically comes to protect the devotees. And so here, in the 11th canto, when Krishna's work was done, the demigods came to Dwarka. When Krishna had, winded up his Dwarka past, and the demigods came to him to tell him that his mission was over, and if he liked, he could leave. And at that time, those inauspicious symptoms appeared. And Uddhava, which will be described in this chapter as well. But this is, I'm trying to explain what happened in terms of Krishna actually disappearing in the 11th canto, which is explained in the 11th canto. So when the inauspicious signs appeared, then Uddhava came to Krishna and told him that he could understand that Krishna was leaving and his heart was breaking, and how he did not want to stay behind. He wanted to go with him. But Krishna, instead of taking him back, he instructed him and sent him to Badrika Ashram. Because one of the reasons was he did not want to see him, to Uddhava to see his disappearance, because he knew it would pain Uddhava's heart a lot. So when Uddhava was leaving for Badrika Ashram, all the inauspicious signs began to appear in Dwarka. So Krishna called all the senior members in Dwarka and told them that they must all go to counteract this inauspicious signs. And they should go to Prabhashetra to do some rituals to remove the bad omens. But actually, the bad could not be removed, right? Because it was Krishna's arrangement. Krishna had arranged all this. But Krishna is playing these games. So it could not be bad, but yet we can understand by these omens that we will also read in this chapter, is that when these omens are present, things are not right. Krishna has left. Right? So when Krishna wants this to happen, nobody can stop it. So all these people, the Yadus, the demigods, they all went to Prabhashetra, but they performed their ceremonies. There, to invoke auspiciousness. But what they did also was they made alcohol out of rice and they drank it and they became intoxicated. And we know that when people become intoxicated, what happens? There's anger. And in this way, they pushed and they insulted each other. They beat each other up with the canes that was on the shore. Now, these canes have their own story, which we won't get into. But basically, these canes turned into iron canes with sharp edges, points. And this happened because of the curse of the sages who the Yadus had offended, by playing a joke on them. And so these canes became very like weapons. And they started, beating each other or poking each other with these weapons. And in this way, they killed each other. It's like a really quite a, gruesome type of explanation. But Krishna had a plan, right? So then the members of the Yadu dynasty, they started attacking Krishna and Balaram. And of course, we know Balaram, when he gets angry, he becomes really angry because he's Ananta Shesha. And his business is to destroy the universe. So when Balaram became angry, then there was no nobody could stay alive, right? So there's a nice painting in the BBT paintings with how Krishna is Balram is, and Krishna killing all the Yadus. And after the killing finished, after they had killed all the Yadus, then Balram, he sat by the ocean, and Krishna sat under a young peepal tree, it is said. And at that time, Uddhava came by him, and the sage Maitreya. And that's when Krishna gave instructions to Uddhava, which came in the form of Uddhava Gita in the 11th canto. And after he instructed Uddhava for some time, he sent him off. At this point, he sent him off to Badrikashram, and he prepared to leave. And then at that time, as he was preparing to leave, it's said that how the sky became crowded with many airplanes. And these were the airplanes of the demigods. And all of them were waiting with their airplanes, wanting to take Krishna to their planet, so that he could bless their planet. And so these demigods so the sky was crowded, you can imagine, all these airplanes were there. And at that time, it is mentioned how Krishna closed his eyes and he just left straight to his abode, not to any of these planets. Because it's said that Krishna closed his eyes because he wanted to avoid all the social obligations. And nobody could see him leaving, actually, except for Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. But just before leaving, Krishna called for his chariot, and Daruka, his chariot driver. He was wandering around, and he smelled. It said that how he smelled the lotus feet of Krishna, and found him at Prabhashetra, and he became mad with ecstasy. And then Krishna gave him instructions. He told him to take the chariot and to go to Dwarka and tell everyone how Daruka had seen all this carnage in Prabhashetra, and then tell all of those who are still remaining in Dwarka that this has happened and Krishna has left, right? And tell my father and mother what has happened. And also to take my wives, Krishna is saying, carefully to Hastinapur to tell Arjuna to take care of them. So then Daruka, of course, was heartbroken, but he had to obey Krishna. So he leaves on the chariot to Dwarka. And at that time, back to Krishna, a hunter came, and this hunter was called Jara. And this hunter was actually Bhrigu Muni in his past life. If you remember the story of Bhrigu Muni, how he went to test who was the most tolerant, then he had tested Brahma and Lord Shiva and then to Vishnu, and he had put his feet on the chest of Vishnu to test him. And of course, Vishnu, instead of getting angry, he actually started massaging his feet. So Lakshmi Devi was sitting there, and she was very upset, and she cursed him that he would take the form of a hunter. And so here he becomes a hunter, and he shoots an arrow at Krishna. Why? Because from a distance, he saw the lotus feet of Krishna sitting under a tree, and he thought it was a deer sitting up. And actually, it was a drama. It was a drama that Krishna was playing by his internal potency. And thinking that Krishna's foot was a deer because it was pinkish, he shot it. And you can imagine what happened after that. Jara realized what he had done, and he fell at his knees, Krishna's knee and feet, and he started crying and asking for forgiveness. But this was Krishna's way to end the drama of his appearance in this world, right? So, and at that time, Jara, the hunter, he gets this benediction of going, he goes straight back to Godhead, for assisting Krishna in his pastimes, right? So, so the demigods, they saw Krishna, of course they saw some of it, and then Krishna left. Krishna disappeared. This is how Krishna disappears. This is how he disappears. Now, as soon as Krishna left, all sorts of good qualities went away. This is where we're going to really begin in this chapter, such as good qualities, such as truthfulness, religiosity, all these things disappeared. And remember, this was one of the questions that the sages asked after Krishna, one of the sages, that after Krishna leaves, where will religion and knowledge take shelter? And the answer is that in this age of Kali, people will get light, from the sun of Srimad Bhagavatam, despite all these things that wrong things that will happen in Kali Yuga. Because the sun of the Srimad Bhagavatam rises when Krishna leaves. So, so a little bit more about Krishna, what happens after that. Daruka, remember, going back to that part where Daruka went to Dwarka because Krishna sent him to Dwarka to tell everybody, all the remaining people, members of the Yadu dynasty, including his parents and all these intimate relatives, such as the queens. They, when Daruka told all these people, and of course, Daruka was heartbroken and he was crying, and hearing this, people became distraught and tears were pouring from their eyes. Now, it's really hard to imagine these feelings, right? And they all went to actually Prabhashetra to see their dead relatives. When Devaki and Rohini could not find their sons, Krishna and Balaram, they all fell down in anguish. Tormented by separation, what happened is they gave up their lives right at that spot. And then the wives of Balaram, and the wives of Vasudev, they all fell into the fire. It said how this is their way of joining their husbands. Then daughters-in-law of Krishna also entered the fire and embraced the bodies of their husband, and of course the queens also entered the fire, because they're thinking Krishna. They're thinking that Krishna has left and they're heartbroken, right? So in this way, Arjuna, he executed the funeral ceremony of all the Yadavas, and in Prabhashetra, where all these other remaining people had come. And as soon as Dwarka was abandoned by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the ocean flooded it from all sides, and only the palaces were spared. Of course, Krishna is always present in Dwarka, which is the most auspicious place, right? And Arjuna takes all the remaining members of the Yadu dynasty to Indraprastha. And when Arjuna comes back, Yudhishthira, and this is what we're going to read from now on in the next few chapters, that when Arjuna comes, and this is how the chapter will actually end, when Yudhishthira sees Arjuna return, very, very dejected, right? And then in the next chapter, we're going to hear about how when they heard, they left for their own abodes. Immediately, the Pandavas leave. And so now we'll go to our next slide, which talks about the bad omens that King Yudhishthira saw, signifying Krishna's disappearance. And this slide will talk about the external defects that he saw. And the next slide will talk about the internal defects. So these were the symptoms. Now, by hearing about these symptoms, we can understand that how, when Krishna comes, how auspicious it is, how any signs, which we see these signs today in the world, they are really a sign of Kali Yuga and how good qualities are leaving, But first of all, the external signs come in the form of natural disasters. I'll read a few verses, and so to give a feel of what's happening here. So text 1 and 2 and 3 here. Srila Sutta Goswami said, Arjuna went to Dwarka to see Lord Krishna and other friends, and also to learn from the Lord of his next activities. So Arjuna has been away for the last 6 months. Yudhishthira sent him to find out what is Krishna's next plan. Because remember, in the last chapter, Narada Muni had given a hint to Yudhishthira Maharaj that you Pandavas can stay here as long as Krishna was here. But he didn't really specify when. Right? So he's saying that, but then 35 years have passed, Krishna has been in Dwarka, and Krishna has been in Dwarka, right? And Yudhishthira Maharaj did not forget the words of Narad Muni, right? So when he started seeing these bad omens in the sky, he sent Arjuna. I mean, even like he had a premonition of what may happen. Krishna may leave. You can imagine the Pandavas moved so much affection and love for the Lord they had, that their whole life, even though now it was in royal opulence, was worthless if Krishna were to leave. Right? A few months passed and Arjuna didn't return. Maharaj Yudhishthira then began to observe some inauspicious omens which were fearful in themselves. So I'll read the Sanskrit of the third verse and the translation. Kalasya chagatim rodram viparas tartu dharmina papiyashyam nirnam vartam krodha lobha nitam manam. He saw that the direction of eternal time had changed, and this was very fearful. There were disruptions in the seasonal irregularities. The people in general had become very greedy, angry, and deceitful, and he saw that they were adopting foul means of livelihood. So in text 3 purport, Prabhupada explains these external defects. When civilization is disconnected from the loving relationship of the Supreme Personality, relation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, symptoms like changes of seasonal regulations, foul means of livelihood, greed, anger, and fraudulence become rampant. The change of seasonal regulations refers to one season's atmosphere becoming manifest in another season. For example, the rainy seasons being transferred to autumn, or the fructification of fruits and flowers from one season in another season. I think we see a lot of it today, don't we? And of course, Prabhupada goes on to talk about how Kali Yuga invites other changes as well, which we'll discuss in the next slide, which is the bad qualities of Kali Yuga approaching, the internal defects. Text 4. All ordinary transactions and dealings become polluted with cheating, even between friends. And in familial affairs, there's always misunderstanding between fathers, mothers, and sons, between well-wishers, between brothers, even between husband and wife, there's always strain and quarrel. In course of time, it came to pass that people in general became accustomed to greed, anger, pride, etc. Maharaj Yudhishthira, observing all these omens, spoke to his younger brother. So Prabhupada writes in the purport of text 4 how in a conditional state, we are not satisfied, no matter what we have. Prabhupada writes how a person is not satisfied even if he becomes the lord of all that he surveys, which he never becomes, right? And therefore he becomes victim of all kinds of cheating, even with his nearest and most intimate relationships. So he not only cheats others, but he also becomes the victim of all kinds of cheating. Even his closest relatives, they end up cheating him. This is so unfortunate, but this is one of the things that happens in Kali Yuga. So in such an unsatisfactory state of affairs, there's no harmony, even between father and sons or between husband and wife. But all these contending difficulties can be mitigated by one process, and that is the devotional service of the Lord. The world of hypocrisy can be checked only by counteraction through devotional service to the Lord and nothing else. Maharaj Yudhishthira, having observed the disparities, conjectures that the disappearance of the Lord from the earth. Maharaj Yudhishthira said to his younger brothers, Bhimasena, I sent Arjuna to Dwarka to meet his friends and to learn from the personality of Godhead Krishna of his program of work. Since he departed, 7 months have passed, yet he has not returned. I do not know factually how things are going on. Is he going to quit his earthly pastimes, as Devarshi Narad indicated? Has that time already arrived? So now that leads to our next slide about how he feels he gives credit for his success to Krishna. Why? Because he's feeling separation from the Lord. He's feeling great separation, right? So he's feeling in that separation, he's feeling that how he owes everything to Krishna, which is text 9. From him only all our kingly opulence, good wives, lives, progeny, control over our subjects, victory over our enemies, and future accommodations in higher planets have become possible. All this is due to his causeless mercy upon us. So whatever Yudhishthira Maharaj accomplished after such a long struggle with the Kauravas, he's giving all the credit to Krishna, all the credit. Never thinking for a moment how wonderful the Pandavas were, how powerful they were. So in the purport of text 9, Prabhupada explains a little bit about this. Maharaj Yudhishthira admits his truth in his personal success, and it behooves one to follow in the footsteps of a great king and devotee of the Lord to make life a full success. If one could achieve success without the sanction of the Lord, then no medical practitioner would fail to cure a patient. This is very interesting because we have all types of health facilities, yet, especially we do see during this time, the pandemic time, how many people are dying in spite of all the best facilities the government can provide. Right? In fact, the people who work for ICU, I was reading a story about their experiences. They've never, so far in their lifetime, they had not experienced death in such a way. Every minute, every second, people are dying, and they're dealing with grief of these people who are just about to die, the grief that they're feeling in separation from their relatives, but also thankful that they were not there, and getting the virus. It is heart-rending, totally heart-rending. So we see that how only Krishna can make life a full success, right? A full success. And without the sanction of the Lord, no medical practitioner can cure a patient. In spite of our best facilities, we are ultimately at the mercy of the Lord. So Prabhupada goes on a little further. Despite the most advanced treatment of a suffering patient by the most up-to-date medical practitioner, there is death, even in the most hopeless case. Without medical treatment, sometimes a patient is cured astonishingly. Therefore, the conclusion is that God's sanction is the immediate cause for all happenings, good or bad. Any successful man should feel grateful to the Lord for all he has achieved. So a very important point here is that Yudhishthira Maharaj was not thinking, oh, what is happening? I'm a king. I must do something about it. I have the ability to do something about it. No, he's not thinking like that. He's thinking that, no, all this, anything good even or bad that's happening to me is due to the mercy, or happening to anyone is due to the mercy of the Lord. And he's feeling also that he really has no power, simply other than to surrender to Krishna. So I'll just read some verses here, which is basically verses from 11 to 21, which describe the symptoms of Kali Yuga and Krishna's disappearance, which comes up again here. A few verses. So here Yudhishthira Maharaj is explaining what are these symptoms that he's feeling. The left side of my body, my thighs, arms, and eyes are all quivering again and again. I'm having heart palpitations due to fear. All this indicate undesirable happenings. Just see, O Bhima, how the she-jackal cries at the rising sun and vomits fire, and how the dog barks at me fearlessly. O Bhimasena, tiger among men, how useful animals like cows are passing me on my left side, and lower animals like the asses are circumambulating me. My horses appear to weep upon seeing me. I'll skip a few verses. The wind blows violently, blasting dust everywhere and creating darkness. Clouds are raining everywhere with bloody disasters. The calves do not suck the teats of the cows, nor do the cows give milk. They're standing, crying, tears in their eyes, and the bulls take no pleasure in the pasturing grounds. The deities seem to be crying in the temple, lamenting and perspiring. They seem about to leave. All the cities, villages, towns, gardens, mines, and hermitages are now devoid of beauty and bereft of all happiness. I do not know what sort of calamities are now awaiting us. I think all these earthly disturbances indicate some greater loss to the good fortune of the world. The world was fortunate to have been marked with the footprints of the lotus feet of the Lord. These signs indicate this no longer will be. So now this leads us to our next slide, how Arjuna comes back and Yudhishthir inquires about Lord Balaram. This is from verses 21 to 29. So Arjuna has come back. Okay, so Yudhishthir is seeing all this, waiting for Arjuna to come back. And here Arjuna comes back. And Yudhishthira Maharaj begins a whole set of inquiries. And you can see the heart of a pure devotee. He's thinking about others. He's not thinking, oh, what's going to happen to me now? What should I do now? What steps should I take to retain my kingdom or myself or protect myself? You know, because as soon as you see these bad omens, you think they're scary and you want to protect yourself. No, but here Arjuna is inquiring about all these relatives, all these yadus who are pure devotees of the Lord. But in particular, he inquires about Lord Balaram. So we'll read a few verses and come to the verse about Lord Balaram in this slide. Then, okay. So, O Brahmana, Shonaka, while Maharaj Yudhishthir, observing the inauspicious signs on the earth at that time, was thus thinking to himself, Arjuna came back from the city of the Yadus, Dwarka. When he bowed down at his feet, the king saw that his dejection was unprecedented. His head was down and tears glided from his lotus eyes. Seeing Arjuna pale due to heartfelt anxieties, the king, remembering the indications of the sage Narada, questioned him in the midst of friends. Maharaj Yudhishthira said, My dear brother, please tell me whether our friends and relatives such as Madhu, Bhoja, Dasharath, Arha, Satvata, Andaka, and the members of the Yadu dynasty are all passing their days in happiness. Is my respectable grandfather Surashena in a happy mood? And are my maternal uncle Vasudev and his younger brothers all doing well? His 7 wives, headed by Devaki, are all sisters. Are they and their sons and daughter-in-laws all happy? Text 28-29. Are Ugrasena, whose son was the mischievous Kansa, and his younger brother still living? Are Hindika and his son Kritavarma happy? Are Krura, Jayanta, Gada, Sarana, and Satyajit all happy? How is Balaram, the personality of Godhead and the protector of devotees? So Prabhupada is pointing in this verse how he's mentioning Lord Balaram as our supreme personality of Godhead. Okay, so here Prabhupada explains about who is Lord Balaram in the pulpit. You know, how he's the protector of pure devotees, how he's spiritual master, expansion of Lord Krishna, and he's equal to Krishna qualitatively and quantitatively. So I'll read a little bit of the pulpit on where Prabhupada explains this. Amongst various names of the relatives, the name of Rama or Balaram, eldest brother of Lord Krishna, is added with the words, the personality of Godhead, because Lord Balaram is the immediate expansion of Vishnu Tattva as Prakash Vigraha of Lord Krishna. The Vishnu Tattva expansions are living beings, are expansions of the Lord, and all of them are qualitatively and quantitatively equal with the Lord. But expansions of the Jiva Tattva, the category of the ordinary living beings, are not at all equal with the Lord. One who considers Jiva Shakti and Vishnu Shakti to be equal level is considered a condemned soul of the world. Sri Ram or Balaram is the protector of the devotees of the Lord. Balaram acts as the spiritual master of all devotees, and by his causeless mercy, the fallen souls are delivered. Sri Baladev appeared as Sri Nityananda Prabhu during the advent of Lord Chaitanya, and the great Lord Nityananda Prabhu exhibited his causeless mercy by delivering a pair of extremely fallen souls named Jagai and Madhaya. So therefore, it is particularly mentioned here that Balaram is the protector of the devotees of the Lord. Okay, now in our next slide, Yudhishthira Maharaj remembers Krishna in 5 ways. Again, we see the internal mood of these great devotees, how connected they are with Krishna. And what are these 5 things? Krishna as Bhagavan, Krishna as Govinda, lover of cows, Krishna as protector, Krishna as Bhaktavatsal, and Krishna as the enjoyer. So I will read a little of the purport here and the text of 34. Is Lord Krishna, where Yudhishthira is inquiring, is Lord Krishna the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who gives pleasure to the cows, the senses, and the brahmanas, who is very affectionate towards his devotee, enjoying the pious assembly at Dwarkapuri, surrounded by friends? Here in this particular verse, the Lord is described as Bhagavan, Govinda, Brahmanya, and Bhaktavatsal. He is Bhagavan Swayam, or the original personality of Godhead, full with all opulences, all power, all knowledge, all beauty, all fame, and all renunciation. No one is equal to or greater than him. He is Govinda because he is the pleasure of the cows and the senses. Those who have purified their senses by the devotional service of the Lord can render unto him real service and thereby derive transcendental pleasure out of such purified senses. So people who are 100% purified, they can really experience this pleasure that Yudhishthira Maharaj is experiencing. Because impure conditioned souls, they cannot derive that pleasure. Right? So now a little bit more of that next verse. The original personality of Godhead, the enjoyer, and Balaram, the primeval Lord Ananta, are staying in the ocean of the Yadu dynasty for the welfare, protection, and general progress of the entire universe. And the members of the Yadu dynasty, being protected by the arms of the Lord, are enjoying life like the residents of the spiritual sky. Again, a flashback of how fortunate these members of the Yadu dynasty are in reality, you know. How can anybody enjoy such intimate relationships with the Lord? So these are people, and when Krishna benedicted them in Dwarka, they were enjoying like the residents of the spiritual sky, not the demigods, but so in other words, it's the spiritual sky which was present in Dwarka. Right? And in our next slide, which is our last one, Yudhishthira Maharaj, speaks about how devotees are fearless. Again, the same theme is continuing, how the Yadus, members of the Yadu dynasty, they're protected by the arms of Lord Krishna. The great heroes of the Yadu dynasty, being protected by the arms of Lord Krishna, always remain fearless in every respect. And therefore their feet trample over the Sudharma assembly house, which the best demigods deserved, but which was taken away from them. And the purport Prabhupada explains, a forgetful conditioned soul is fearful, but a liberated soul is never fearful. Just as a small child, completely dependent on the mercy of his father, is never fearful of anyone. Fearfulness is a sort of illusion for the living being when he is in slumber and forgetting his eternal relationship with the Lord. Since the living being is never to die by his constitution, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 2:20, then what is the cause of fearfulness? A person may be fearful of a tiger in a dream, but another man who's awake by his side sees no tiger there. A tiger is a myth for both of them, namely the person dreaming and the person awake, because actually there's no tiger. But the man forgetful of his awakened state is fearful, whereas a man who has not forgotten his position is not at all fearful. Thus, the members of the Yadu dynasty were fully awake in their service to the Lord, and therefore there was no tiger for them to be afraid of at any time. Even if there was a real tiger, the Lord was there to protect them. So that was also the mood of the residents of Vrindavan. Krishna was always there to protect them. The cowherd boys never had to kill even one demon. Right? Mother Yashoda and Nand Maharaj had never had to deal with any demon. Krishna did it all, right? So this is the mode of a pure devotee. How he's so fearless. Why? Because Krishna becomes their protector. They have no fear. They're willing to even to walk into the mouth of Agasur. They're so fearless. Right? So this is my last slide, but I'll read a few verses just to give a feel of what happens after this, where Yudhishthira Maharaj now turns the inquiry to Arjuna. You know, it's interesting how he turns the inquiry to how Arjuna is feeling, right? Why he's dejected, what is the cause of his despondency. So far, he's been asking about the relatives and how they were doing because he just came from Dwarka, but now he's concerned about his brother. So starting text 39, he asks, "My brother Arjuna, please tell me whether your health is all right. You appear to have lost your bodily luster. Is this all due to others disrespecting and neglecting you because of your long stay in Dwarka? Has someone addressed you with unfriendly words or threatened you? Could you not give charity to one who asked? Or could you not keep your promise to someone?" You can see the high standards, of Vedic culture, that people would become despondent if you could not do these things, especially for a Kshatriya, if you could not keep promise, if you not fulfill your promise that you gave to somebody, if you could not give charity, because the duty of the Kshatriya is to give charity, not to take charity. You are always the protector of the deserving living beings, such as brahmanas, children, cows, women, and the diseased. He's telling Arjuna this. Could you not give them protection when they approached you for shelter? Have you contacted a woman of impeachable character? Or have you not properly treated a deserving woman? Or have you been defeated on the way by someone who is inferior or equal to you? Have you not taken care of old men and boys who deserve to dine with you? Have you left them and taken your meals alone? Have you committed some unpardonable mistake which is considered to be abominable? Or is it that you're feeling empty for all time because you might have lost your most intimate friend, Lord Krishna? Oh, my brother Arjuna, I can think of no other reason for your becoming so dejected. So this is where the chapter ends. And in the next chapter, we're going to hear from Arjuna, his realizations. So thank you very much. And now I'll give it to Radhika to explain the activities for our children based on this chapter.
Thank you. Just a few seconds to set up my PowerPoint. Okay. So, same format as the other chapters where we read and discuss directly from Prabhupada's Bhagavatam, the 14th chapter, and turn by turn read the translations with the child. And then we're ready to move on to some activities from Srimad Bhagavatam for young readers. The book begins the chapter with a nice story summary, and it's got a lot of onomatopoeias, words that describe sounds, and you can see over here, my left side is shaking, shaking, my heart is beating, da, dama, 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 the dog is barking, woof, 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 the cow passed my left side, moo, moo, moo. So all the evil omens have been brought to life. And the story is presented very nicely. Arjuna returned home. "You're back?" exclaimed King Yudhishthira as he saw his brother enter. Arjuna didn't say a word. Tears glided down his pale face as he bowed down to his elder brother. King Yudhishthira remembered the sage's words once again. So it very well pieces together the entire, or stitches together the entire story, which sometimes can be hard to follow directly from the Bhagavatam. I think this chapter is easier, but there are other stories where, or other chapters where there's a story going on, and then there'll be some diversion, and then come back. But the way it's presented in the book, it flows very nicely. There was a chat to pin my video. Just 1 second. Yes, I can do that. Thank you. Just 1 second. Okay, that should work better now. Thank you for that. And then we move on to key messages. So the verses in the chapter are very systematically grouped, and themes are presented as well as key messages. So for instance, in the verses 2 to 3, okay, there's another comment in the chat. Sorry. And I'm not able to look at it right now. So hopefully you can hear me. So the key messages in verses 2 to 3 and then 1 to 21 again are that nature can indicate inauspicious events even today, what to speak of thousands of years ago, when the earth and nature were in tune with pleasing the Supreme Lord, and so on. We move on to understanding the story. There are 10 questions that are all multiple choice. And somebody shared feedback with me this past week, somebody who's in England, that they're really enjoying the understanding the story multiple choice questions that they're doing from the first canto. And they've been following the system of where they have a group of students, and so instead of like everyone shouting out A, everybody has 3 cards. So A, B, and C written on their cards, and all you have to do is hold up the card that has the right alphabet on it to tell me what the answer is. And the children seem to really enjoy that, like having this card in their hand and then lifting it up to say, what is the answer? Seems to do the trick in terms of getting them very attentive. Higher thinking questions to deepen one's understanding of this chapter, and really help to dive into Prabhupada's purpose, especially for older children. A good way to do this is to just assign the question and let them on their own, read the purport, try to understand it, make sense of the English, comprehend it, and then present it in their own words in writing. Very thoughtful questions, such as, do you think it was the correct time for Krishna to leave? Wouldn't it be better for him to just stay forever? What about the poor people of Kali Yuga, like you and me? And then there's a clue given. Did Krishna have something very special, leave something very special behind for the people of Kali Yuga? His literary incarnation. Explain why Arjuna was sent to Dwarka. Why is Krishna referred to as Bhagavan in Govinda? So, 6 questions here. And then we delve into activities that are exciting and leave an impression on the child's body, by really getting them to move and to experience the chapter. So the first one is jump rope, the bad omens rope chant. So there's a song at the end of the chapter, and we'll get to that. How long can you recite that without touching the rope? So keep chanting the song and jumping the rope. There's a similar activity in one of the earlier chapters, jump, which is also based on the poem in that chapter. Analogy activity, to bring the analogy from verse 3 purport to life. A man becomes too greedy, says Prabhupada, for wealth and power when he has no higher objective in life, and when he thinks that this earthly life of a few years is all in all. Ignorance is the cause for all these anomalies in human society, and to remove this ignorance, especially in this age of degradation, the powerful sun is there to distribute light in the shape of Srimad Bhagavatam. So the children are going to be doing a real fun project where they're going to need some resources such as fabric glue, and a few colors of felt paper or construction paper. We've even used white paper and then colored it to that particular color, and scissors and so forth. And prior to the activity, sketch a simple drawing of the sun rising, its rays and blue skies. If it's more practical, you can start with a ready sewn blue cushion cover. And to make a very simple cushion cover or asana for the Bhagavatam is the task. Whenever you read or hear from the Bhagavatam, this cushion can be used to put the Bhagavatam on. Close your eyes for a moment and think of the energy of the sun's rays shining so brightly. Now you're ready to use your creative hands and learn to sew in simple stitch. So it gives instructions for how to sew and also discussing the analogy. So there's some prompt questions. Why is Bhagavatam compared to the sun? What is the ignorance being referred to here? And if we absorb the light of the Bhagavatam, what will happen? How will it impact our society? So because the Bhagavatam is Krishna himself, it's important to treat it with respect, and that's why this pillow, little cushion for the Bhagavatam. Omens mobile. So, often they're mobiles, like especially in a crib or on a stroller. And this is creating an omens mobile based on the omens in this chapter. So you can now make a mobile with Yudhishthira in the middle and all the omens images surrounding him. First stick the two sticks together in a cross shape and then fasten with the tape, and in the middle attach a string, and then that string will be attached either to the ceiling or to another place in the house. And that are given, so the child can color and cut these out and create this hanging three-dimensional omens mobile. So it really brings the different omens to life. Very nice illustrations describing the different omens that are given in the chapter. And then also memory cards. So again, this is similar to the memory activity that we did in an earlier chapter. So print the Amen cards in resource 2 and cut them out and then become familiar with them. And then without allowing your partner to see, remove one card and place the remaining cards inside a box and cover the box with a lid. Now your partner will look in the box and examine the cards and recall which particular card is missing. And if it's played in a group, you can take turns to remove a card while the others try to recall. And resource 2 provides the images that are being spoken about. For writing, a very nice diary entry. Pretend you're either Yudhishthira Maharaj or Arjuna and express how you're feeling about the loss of your very dear friend Krishna. First letter question game. So in this game, the letter in the question on the left is the first letter of the answer on the right. And ask your partner this question, and the first letter is given as a clue. So what N in the name of the person who said Krishna would soon be returning to the spiritual world? What A in the name of the person who Yudhishthira sent to Dwaraka? So it's a nice way to learn everything that Krishna has shared, or Srila Goswami, Sukha Goswami shared in this chapter. Match the action to the doer. For each of the actions that are listed on the left, name who or what person or what performs the action, and make lines. So who was shaking, what was not shining, and who was braying, and who was barking. So the child can again really understand these omens. Action activity sheet. Action words or verbs are doing words. They describe action. So for instance, I'll run quickly to the temple. We'll jump. So run and jump are verbs. Think of your own examples. And how do you determine if a word is a verb? And then circle the action words in this box and then fill in the spaces with an appropriate word. So teaching figure of speech and parts of speech, grammar through the Bhagavatam. Very nice activity. The dog dashed at me fearlessly, barks at me fearlessly, and the child can understand, oh, barks is a verb. We have some words given here, and the child is encouraged to go into the dictionary and look up their meaning and write it down in the definition section. a crossword. What animal makes a wolf sound? What animal makes a moose sound? Where did Arjuna go? Which season is usually cold? So all of these are from the chapter itself. And this is the same poem that's in the story summary, but also given here because it's, the jump rope activity is based on it. So this is the poem that the child is reciting as they jump rope. The wind is blowing, ooh, the cows don't drink, no, 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 the cows don't feed, no, 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 the deedis, the tears, drop, 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 they're all crying and the sun's not shining, what a terrible thing, or what a terrible thing, what a terrible thing. And then there's a poem, something bad has happened, the Yudhishthira saw frightening omens, left side is shaking, shake, 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 surely this terrible news is fake. Something bad has happened, Yudhishthira saw frightening omens, she-jackal cries at the rising sun. How could his pastimes all be done? Something bad has happened, Yudhishthira saw frightening omens, donkeys bray, ayuri, terrible omens can't be ignored. Something bad has happened, Yudhishthira saw frightening omens, horses cry, nay, 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 the smoky sky is looking gray. So there's a lot of emphasis on understanding the evil omens. And the answers are provided at the end. The book is on the UK, and we are Golden Age Publishing in India. So I can, okay. I'm going to just let participants unmute themselves now. If you have a question, please, so I can call on you and ask away. Any questions? Unflippable from Delhi is thanking us for the session. Thank you for joining every week. Adi Gaurangi Prabhu, please unmute yourself and ask the question.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, All Grace to Srila Prabhupada. I was wondering,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you again for a wonderful lecture. I was wondering, the Vishnu Tattvas are same in qualitatively and quantitatively in all respects to the Lord. So does that mean that, because I thought usually he is supreme, Krishna is supreme, so that means Balaram and all Vishnu Tattvas are just as equally supreme?
Yes, yes, they're equally supreme. There's actually no difference. So Balaram is an expansion of the Lord. And like there's expansions and then there's incarnations. Okay, there's two different things. And so Balaram is the direct expansion of the Lord. And then there's incarnations, of the Lord. So many of them, right? Like, for example, in the Panchatattva category, Advaita Acharya is an incarnation. But he's also Vishnu category, So there's different levels, but they are all similar in quality and quantitatively, meaning to say that they are still Vishnu Tattva. However, every one of them consider the Lord Krishna as supreme in different ways, and they still consider Krishna as supreme. So, this is all distinguished from the Jiva category. So the idea is to distinguish Vishnu category to the Jiva category. Now that's a big difference over there, because we have a tendency to fall down, right? And they don't. So, that's why you can say that they are qualitatively and quantitatively equal to the Lord. There's no difference. In other words, there's nothing that they cannot do that Krishna can do, pretty much. That's the whole thing. They are just as potent as Krishna. However, because Krishna is the source of all of them, Krishna is the source of the incarnations, Krishna is the source of the expansions, everything. So Krishna is still the supreme, and all of them serve the Lord. That's why you see in every category, in every incarnation, they always consider Krishna as supreme. You know, they bow down to Krishna. For example, Lord Nityananda serving as Balram, serving Krishna. The mood is still of service, right? Every one of them, every one of the incarnations is in that mode of service because Krishna is the source. He's coming. All these personalities are coming from Krishna, right? So they are also desirous to see Krishna. They also, we have stories like that, right? Mahavishnu in the 10th canto is described how he had a desire to see the Lord as Lord Krishna of Dwarka. And he devised all kind of plan to get Krishna to Shvetadvipa, to the Causal Ocean to see him. So they still have the mood, and they know that they are expansions of Krishna, and Krishna is the original. They have that
Okay.
understanding. They have that understanding, and therefore they are still serving the Supreme Lord Krishna.
Okay.
I don't know.
Thank you for the nice explanation. Yes. Thank you, Mataji.
Main thing is to distinguish between Vishnu Tattva and Jiva Tattva. That's the
Okay.
main thing to distinguish. And then Krishna's expansions are so diverse. There's so many details in that is described in the Bhagavatam. This is just a simple way of seeing how he expands to Balaram, Balaram into the Chaturvyuha, and then as Lord Narayan, and then Lord Narayan as the three Purushas, expanding as three Purushas. So again and again, so many expansions. But this is really just the tip of the icing. I mean, this is just the icing, but the tip is Krishna, ultimately he's the tip. So this is just like that there's so much details, technical details into every category. However, the essence is to understand that they are all part of Krishna, they are same, and there's a big distinction between them and Jiva. Because we cannot put what's happening in today's world. The jivas are, they are mistaken as Vishnu. That's the problem. That's where the cheating happens. When we take the jivas and we say they're God, that's where the problem is. Okay.
Thank you so much, Mataji.
Yeah.
Okay, Anko Prabhu. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for a wonderful session, as always. Like I had this question, this natural curiosity. Like these days, omens we generally don't talk about, and we generally don't see those kinds of omens these days. So, how do children understand the omen thing?
Yeah, I wait. I
And
need to
as a
turn my
perspective,
volume. Prabhu, I can. No, it's the volume is somehow is wrong. Something is wrong, the volume. So let me try to adjust that first. Something is wrong here.
am I not audible? Is it so?
No, yeah, you're not audible. Yeah, just let me. I think I may hear you better now. You try, please. Yeah.
Okay. Am I audible clearly now, Mataji?
Yeah, a little better. Yes.
Okay, sure. So I was asking, how do children understand the Omen thing? Because these days, even we don't see these things happening practically, and we generally don't connect. And more or less, it is also like, how it is projected as if, acha, Billy rasta kat gayi to, so, wo andhvishwas pe aap ja rahe ho. So we are going into that direction. So how do we actually, make them understand that these things are scientific? Maybe these days these happen, don't happen. To what extent do we follow? So, how do we really put it into perspective? Because even in like Prabhupada, so even we get to understand that हमें वो कर्म कांडी perspective से नहीं जाने. So generally we tend to put these things, and हम बोलते हैं कि blind faith है, so let's not follow them, let's not talk about them, or let's not give any importance to them. So how do we really put it into perspective? So that is sort of my question.
Radhika, do you want to answer this?
Prabhupada explains that you have to have faith in something, and we're choosing whether we want to have faith in modern science, or whether we want to have faith in the Vedic science, which includes omens. That's a very big part of, when Lord Chaitanya was born, when Krishna was born, the good omens and the auspicious omens, and then there's the evil omens when Krishna leaves. So there's a lot of emphasis on omens and understanding that they portend or foretell a particular type of event. And it's a matter of where we choose to place our faith. I think this can launch into a whole discussion about science, about, well, so, are we believing everything that science says? That is also taking a huge leap of faith, from the Big Bang to the evolution to the medical advances in science, versus do we want to follow the science that is followed and that is propounded by these perfected personalities, our Goswamis and Bhaktivinoda Thakur. I mean, for instance, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his son was born with his umbilical cord wrapped around himself as a Brahman thread. And that's taken as a sign, an omen, that this is an amazing personality. He has a natural Brahman thread. There's another omen. So is Bhaktivinoda Thakur, believing in things that are just hearsay or not scientific. No, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is extremely scientific and extremely intelligent. That's how I would explain it to my children if they asked a question about, is this really scientific?
Very good, very good. I think that explains a lot. Yeah, I mean, even the scientists, what I feel is even also that the scientists are also having a leap of faith. They can't explain so many things. So they're also depending on faith. They are promising us so many things in future. They said in future, we're going to create life from matter, that we're going to take, like, for example, an egg, right? An egg. Egg has some yellow stuff and it has some white stuff in it, right? So, these are all chemicals, right? Coming together. So why don't they create an egg? And then in future, there could be a chicken. They're promising, yes, in one day we're going to create this egg. But we know that they'll never be able to create. Only when this egg has contact with the soul, then only the chicken will come out. You see, so their theories are all wrong. They're all erroneous. And they are also they go by faith. So many planets are up in the sky, they're floating, they're not coming down, They cannot explain those things. Scientists cannot explain so many phenomena, and we are taking them, like Radhika is saying, we're taking them on faith. Whatever they're saying, we need faith to believe what they're saying, because it cannot be proved. And what they're trying to prove there is a proof that's something projected in the future, which we can't depend on, So this is how you explain. You actually, like she's saying, you bring those facts. You actually, and you're a man of the world, right? You go to work and everything, right? So you know what's happening out there, right? So you bring those things to them, the practical reality, and show them step by step how these things are taken on faith, and try to smash that. These things have to be, that conviction has to be given to children from early on in their life. Not that we wait, okay, because by then it's too late. By the time children go to college, they'll completely brainwash you. Every subject, and is all atheistic or it's impersonal. I saw that with my own children. They had read Bhagavatam for so many years, and when they went to college, I took a course on philosophy. It was so atheistic. The teacher was just completely atheistic. He knew we were Hare Krishnas. He knew that, and he had great respect, actually. But at the same time, he was totally atheistic. To the point that my son says that there was one teacher he had who was, dying. His time came and he was dying in the hospital, and my son went to see him, and he was saying, he told him that, your Krishna that you talked about, I wonder, I think about him. He had been to the temple a couple times, So I'm saying that ultimately these people are so afraid of death. When death strikes on their face, they are fearful. They if they've had contact with a devotee, they'll think about that. So you bring these things to the child and prove it to them as best in your ability. Don't give it up. We want to do it logically, of course. But at the same time, we want to build in them the spirit of not taking things blindly, not accepting things. Bring home that spirit. I remember my grandchildren, they would say that we would have some discussions, and the day I would say I'm doing this part, they would say, "Oh, but can you talk to us about Mayavadi?" I knew half of it they could not understand, right? But it's just that they like that spirit of challenge. you know. So children like that actually. So don't be afraid to give them that challenge, and try to do it as much as you can. I had so little knowledge. I tell you, when I was my kids were growing up about all this science and all. I just tried to do what I could. you know. And then later on, as you grow older, you understand these things better. But that time it was just not possible for me to know everything. So we Krishna fills in the rest. Krishna gives that rest of that faith that we cannot give, that factually we cannot provide them. You see? Okay. Yeah.
No, actually, that was a big step when you say that, my children studied entire science from Srimad Bhagavatam. It's not a small thing, not at all a small thing. So when you're saying that material science or this science and that science, so everything they studied, like Radhikaraman Prabhu and the Darshan. So when they are studying the entire
Yeah.
syllabus Srimad Bhagavatam, except for mathematics, I guess. So that's a very big thing
Yeah.
when we think of it.
Yeah.
हमारे लिए बहुत बिल्कुल भी पॉसिबल नहीं है ऐसे कर पाना but definitely you've done a great step in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, I was fumbling to find science teachers
Yes,
and things like that, and I didn't put too much effort, so that's why it happened like that. And
right.
I'm sure all of you are finding ways to do that, but I could not do it. So for me, it was a little shock that after Bhagavatam they could jump to basic science classes in the college. Actually, it is possible because the Bhagavatam gives such a it improves the faculty, the intellect. It sharpens the intellect to such a point that even physics, something like physics, you're able to take it and you can grasp it, because it gives that sharpening, that the intellect is so sharpened by the thought-provoking aspects of Bhagavatam, and it's so purifying that actually it can give you that intelligence to actually tackle subjects like that. I myself, like I said, I was shocked, that how could this happen? But yeah, but the basic grounding in maths was very helpful. Okay, so math helps in that, towards that scientific mind as so really amazing. And what was amazing is even after that, they did well in math also. In other words, it was okay
Yes,
because Bhagavatam will give, that's why Prabhupada says, right? Prabhupada says, Srimad Bhagavatam can cover every subject matter in the world. And then he names all these subjects, right? Astronomy, astrology, physics, everything. How is it possible? Because Bhagavatam doesn't talk about physics per se. It doesn't give the
right.
periodic table, right? All these things. But how is it sharpens that intellect by which you can grasp everything? So what I'm saying is that you do have what you have to do, cover all those subjects, what you have to do, but don't neglect, the study of Bhagavatam. That's what I tell people. Okay. So you learn all things from there. So don't neglect that.
So one update I would like to share with you, as in you mentioned one day that children will start connecting one story to the other. This has started happening with Pragya. So one story we are reading, Papa उसमें ऐसा हुआ था ना. So she gives me an example to support what is being done right now. So at many places she's able to connect with the other story from what is she studying in the school, from any pastimes of Krishna. So I mean, I at the next moment I think ये तो मैंने भी नहीं सोचा था. So this has started happening. That
This is
is
very
really,
nice, Prabhu. That's
yes,
that's really a good sign. Good sign. If
that's really a good
children,
sign.
through your effort, through your study of Bhagavatam with them, if they start doing that, connecting, that means they are moving in the right direction. well, connecting one straw in their, in their development, educational development
Yes.
overall. It's very
Yes, yes.
valuable.
But just one challenge we generally face. So if you could just help me have a solution for that. So generally what they do is they have an interest, but children of that age, like she's just 6 now. So she would have something in his hand and would keep playing with it and would keep listening. So I test many times. So is she really listening or is she just playing? So
Oh,
the answer comes that okay, she's listening. I at many times check immediately. So I generally get to know that okay, she's listening.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, how do we
She's
really
listening.
take this into perspective? And sometimes she, hey Papa, मुझे ना लेट के सुनना है. I want to lie down and you just keep speaking. At times it also happens. So how do we really handle this thing? Is it okay to have it, or we
Well,
need to?
you will know that she's listening because she'll comment during the day something that she's listened to. By that, you will know that she has been listening. They listen totally, because
Right.
the sound vibration is also spiritual, so it's going inside. See, it's a spiritual
Correct.
sound vibration. So that has no, I mean, it has its own entry, it goes in. And so, therefore, make comments about what you said. It is so amazing. I have this one class with the younger children. I had, this one class, and it's amazing how much they grasp, these younger children, how much
Yes.
they
Yes. Yes.
soak in, and they listen more intently than the older children because they're more innocent and they have less distractions. Their mind is less distracted. Little children are not listening would be a big mistake. And I'm sure Radhika, when Jiva, your younger son Jiva, when he was little, and I know that I did one session with them, right, when I was at home, and it was amazing. He was so little and he was doing his drawing, and he was working on something while I was, teaching them Srimad Bhagavatam, and he had grasped more than the older one. So I'm saying that they do grasp.
Right. That's right.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank
so much.
you.
This thing will really help me. Thank you so much, Mataji.
Thank you, Ankur Prabhu, for joining us every week and for your nice questions. Several people are appreciating your response, Mataji, Premarasa, and Patikeli Radhika, and Shamarupini Prabhu's. I can personally say what gets me most inspired in Aruddha Mataji's association is just her faith is so contagious, and it comes out so strongly. She gets enlivened about the Srimad Bhagavatam, and you really did that for us just now. I'm Prabhu to please unmute herself and ask her question. She also has a comment to share.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat. This is Madhuri Rasa from Pune.
Hare
Um,
Hare
um,
Krishna. Who's this?
Madhuri?
Madhuri. Okay, okay. Yes, Madhuri. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. By chance, today's session is exactly where we are at. With my daughter, we're doing the same chapter right now. And one of the high thinking questions: why did Krishna have to leave? This is the first question Priyamada asked me. Why did Krishna have to leave?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
So
heartbreaking. Yeah.
yes. So the whole the science of omens that we were just discussing. So my son, when he was attending Gurukul here, he also had the subject Nimitta Shastra, in which there's this whole scientific Shastra where they were taught what does each of these omen means. So this is very scientific. Unlike just a system of beliefs, I was thinking, additionally there was a small discussion about it. So, and also one experience that maybe Mataji also can add to this is Nimitta still exists. We still, if we are sensitive enough, we can sense the omens and we can sense what they're giving us. So that was something I wanted to just add as a comment. And the question I had, Mataji, was right now we are in this chapter. my question was, what happens is children tend to forget details as they go forward, details that they learned before. So how do we do it? Like, do we? So my question to you was, we do a few cantos and then come back to the first canto, because by the time we go to the 12th canto, I don't know. I often wonder about how this goes. Of course, as adults, we also have to keep rereading. For children, how do you recommend that we do? I mean, do we, after we finish the canto, we again do a recap of the canto, or should we go? Would that be too boring, or how? What would you suggest?
Radhika, do you have any suggestion for that?
Specifically, your question is about like going back after having finished.
Right, right.
I don't have experience of this, Mataji. I'm only on the 4th canto with my children. I've done, when they were younger, we used to do stories from different cantos. And then at some point we started 1st canto onwards and doing from your books, which is wonderful, but it takes a little extra time than just, reading the Bhagavatam. So I'm sorry, I don't have anything to add.
Well, okay to keep moving, because those same principles keep coming back that you would have heard in the 1st canto, those points, because that's the wonderful thing about Bhagavatam, is that the basic things keep repeating. So it's not like they are losing anything, but at the same time, I know when they get older, they'll come back to it. I went through the 12 cantos with my children, but I'm yet doing 1st canto now, right? So you keep coming back to it. So it's up to you how you want to do it. But I think it's okay to go on, because children are very restless by nature, and it's not so important for them to learn all the details right now, because it may get too bogged down for them. They already have so many things to study for school. There's so many subject matters, so many things, and that takes time and effort. To take it up as bookish knowledge in terms of remembering facts and all may turn them away from Bhagavatam. So right now, just let them enjoy it and learn through these things. And then later on, as they get older, and in a few years, you'll be finished with 12 cantos, right? They will have to come back to 1st canto, and then they'll be maturer and they'll enjoy it better. Okay? I wouldn't burden them with so many things right now.
Yeah.
So many facts.
Because
Don't worry about the details.
Yes, Madhuri. The reason I asked this was in the initial chapters, Priyamvada was a little too young to do several activities. So now that she understands a few things better, so I was thinking, do you want to go back and do? She said, I do, but I don't want to read all of those translations again. I don't want to go and read those chapters again. So
yeah, that would be a mistake, actually. I would. So therefore, I would
go ahead from where.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Matthew.
In terms of the activities from the book, yes. I'm sorry if that's what you were asking. I have done that with my children, because, like Jiva was maybe a year or 2 years old when we first started Aruddha Mataji's book. And we've gone back twice, actually. So we actually have 3 copies of each of Mataji's books, because I've done them 3 times with each child at different ages, just because it has been so much fun, because what is the purpose in reading Bhagavatam? It's to purify our heart, right? This is not acquiring information. Even if we die after reading just the 1st canto, it's Krishna's lotus feet. So it's not like we're trying to understand all the concepts and get all the information out of all 12 cantos. Our heart is getting purified. So I've done, 3 times over until 3rd canto, because these activities are so wonderful, and they're quite age specific, some of them. So Jiva's motor skills, his comprehension was just not there. So we went back and did some of the activities that Mataji gives in her books when he got older.
Okay. Thank you, Mataji.
We have a question from Venkatesh Prabhu. How to prepare children for a possible challenge they could face from a peer or an adult atheist that they've been taught mythology.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Well, Prabhupada explains that in many ways through examples. in his books, in the Bhagavatam, that I remember that one example that he gave was, and then you catch on to those examples, to tell them, explain them that, when you buy a microphone, then along with the microphone comes a literature, a booklet, which explains how to use that microphone, right? So along with the cosmic creation, when creation happened, along with it comes literature to explain about this cosmos, not only the physical part of the cosmos, how it works and all that, but also the purpose. What are you going to get out of this creation? In the same way, what are you going to get out of this microphone? Now, if you were to he explains further that if you were to take this microphone and you break it apart to see how it works, okay, well, maybe you were curious and you did that. But that's about all that you did. And you forgot to use the microphone for its purpose. Why the microphone? It was to magnify sound. Then really it would not be solved, right? The purpose is lost. So in the same way, this literature is there for us to understand how this cosmos, the physical laws, maybe, how it all works according to the Vedic perspective. But the main thing is these literatures are giving us the understanding of what is the purpose behind this creation, and and the purpose of our life is to work towards that goal. Okay, so you take
Looks like we might have lost Mataji. Her bandwidth is not too good today. Perhaps in the meantime, I can share something that I've learned from Aruddha Mataji regarding this, is the process of debate and having the child take on the perspective of defending the Srimad Bhagavatam, and the adult taking on the perspective of the challenger. So Jiva Goswami's methodology includes, this Purva Paksha. So how to prepare them is your question for a challenge. Let them do the defending, and you be the one that's arguing against. And you're arguing that this is all mythology, and the child is defending it, and see what they come up with. And then they own it. Instead of the adult giving the answers to the child, then the child owns it, and he or she is buying into the Vedas. And then it's something that goes in, that they truly have faith in, rather than mommy or daddy said, this is not mythology, this is the truth. So I just wanted to share that. Okay. It is 8:58, or 2 minutes before our time to end, and we seem to have lost Aruddha Mataji. So we'll be back next week on Saturday with chapter 15. Thank you so much for joining. Hare Krishna.